Morning, Trainiacs. We have a run, swim day on our hands here. That's what we're doing. Just gotta mobilize this ankle here to warm up. Now, as I start getting into the prep for full Ironman Challenge Roth, start looking at how the previous build for Puerto Rico went. So I'm starting to dive into all the analytics, how much I biked, how much I swam, how much I run. I haven't looked at it from a global standpoint of how many hours I did each week in each discipline, training stress score, all that nitty gritty stuff. So we are going to look at some stats today. I hope that I can figure out how to do that. Yeah. Celebrity sighting at the pool. It's,
this is a peace sign.
This is a peace sign. That's Jacques. Cool. He did the marathon swim with me and got me into triathlon and stole my Sawzall for the last 2 months. Yeah. All right. I figured it out. I put on a collared shirt instantly. My IQ went up by about 20 points and I figured out how to show what I want to show with how the build went leading into Half Ironman Puerto Rico. Let's get nerdy, shall we? So this is my Training Peaks account going back to November 1st. That would be basically when I'd say the start of the season went. And it just really eased into it. After Half Ironman Worlds in 2018, I took a full 2 months of just doing whatever I felt like doing, nothing specific. But November 1st, I started bringing in regularity and following a schedule. And over the course of November 1st to March 16th, the day before Half Ironman Puerto Rico happened, the average duration of my week of all workout types was 8 hours, 49 minutes. That's it, total. It's not this 15, 20 hour week, and I still went 4:36. I placed 14th overall, and that even includes Heather Jackson, the pro, who went there and from what I heard, thought that it was a pro race and there were no other pros there. So she raced the amateur race and then they invalidated her time. So bumped me up to 13th place. Another thing the collar is good for. And the reason that I do those lower weeks, particularly for a half Ironman where I think you can get away with it, and even more for a sprint or an Olympic, is because I don't believe that to be a competitive age group triathlete, you need to do these massive weeks. What's more important is the composition of those weeks. What you're doing in the workouts is more important than the total amount of training that you're doing, because you can do a total amount of training that the training isn't very good, the recovery isn't good, the drills and sequences aren't very good, just the workload isn't very good. So I approach this as train smart, not necessarily hard. However, there were some really hard sessions in there. That's part of having the right composition. So average duration by week, 8 hours, 49 minutes, 30 seconds. And what you can see is that that started out fairly light with maybe a total of, here we've got 7 hours, 51 seconds, 8 hours, 23 seconds, and it increased to a peak of 13 hours, 57 minutes, and 2 weeks out, 12 hours, 21 minutes. Training stress score. This is something that is a fair bit skewed by Training Peaks because I did a little bit of water running. Strength training isn't included in there, but you can see that the average training stress score was 505. This is the amount of load that is placed on your body, and it's basically a perfect 2 weeks of intensity and then 1 week rest. 2 weeks of intensity and 1 week rest. 2 weeks of intensity, 1 week rest. And I followed that, building up gradually to the point that the main meat of the preparation, the final 2 weeks, the on weeks were 747 training stress score, a 685 training stress score, a 883 training stress score, a 777, a 708. Dan Plews, the coach, the consultant that I'm working with leading into Challenge Roth, says that basically the cost of doing business to be a good amateur triathlete is somewhere around a training stress score of about 700. So we hit that, but I hit it very purposefully so I didn't have to accumulate a whole bunch of hours, allowing me to just work out an average of 8 hours, 49 minutes. Getting into the specific workouts, I spent 47.8% of my time on the bike, 27.3% of the time on the swim, 17.7% of my time on the run, and 6.76% of my time strength training. And you might say, Taren, you performed the worst out of all those three on the run. Yeah, I deserve to. But the way that I know that my body functions, that a lot of age group triathletes' bodies function, that you've got to be really, really careful on the run. So I tend to lean on the swim to build some of that top end fitness and general overall fitness, and know that it carries over to a little bit of the run. So if you look at a lot of pro triathletes, it's not that far off of here. Time in heart rate zones of all workout types, I spent 51.8% of my time in zone 1, 20.5% of my time in zone 2, accumulating 72% of my time in low recovery zones, zones 1 and 2, that general fitness building. And if you take a look at this, including the off season, that would be closer to about 80%, because that off season is really, really low intensity, not a lot of work there. So I'm kind of close to that 75 to 80% number that we want to see for the low intensity. And there is a fair bit of high intensity here because there's a good 2 months of this where I'm doing that race pace effort. That is when you start doing the zone 3 efforts, not all year round. These charts show that perfectly. You look at the light colors here, which are the low intensity heart rate zones. The light colors over here, those are the low power zones. The darker colors are the higher heart rate intensities. The darker colors here are the higher power numbers. And what you can see is it starts out with mostly everything being in light intensity, general fitness building, and gradually as we go forward closer and closer to the race, we start including greater and greater amounts of time at the higher intensities, that race pace sharpening kind of effort. And what did it all result in? It resulted in this nice upward trajectory of gaining bits of fitness, like the big mountain. That's gaining fitness. Starting off with a fitness score of 46, that's what happens. You lose a lot of fitness after an off season, and finishing the day before the race at a fitness score of 74, a form score of 13. You want just slightly positive because that's an indication that your fitness is high and your fatigue is low. So that was the build up to Half Ironman Puerto Rico. I was happy with how it went. It being an early season race, I wasn't expecting to have a really good performance because it's hard to simulate getting sun on your skin when you're running. It's hard to simulate that wind resistance when you're running. It's hard to simulate little bits of crosswind in the bike. And what I found getting off the bike is that my upper body was quite stiff because basically I'd been in a trainer for 5 months. And what I found with Coeur d'Alene last year was something similar. Like I was fit enough to race, but not fit enough to set world records. So it was like a nice jumping off point for the rest of the year, showing me that I was on track, that I had a decent idea of how to train. I hope so, because every single day here I spout gold. Now, the biggest part of all of this for you is the composition of your training is what matters the most. It's not about just training more for the sake of training more. Age group triathletes will often train more and they might get slower because it's not an appropriate balance. It's the parts of the training that go into each and every workout that make a bigger difference for us time-strapped triathletes. Looking at me, I'm doing 8 hours, 49 minutes of my entire life. This whole place revolves around triathlon. So what can you expect? You can expect to get faster with maybe a 4, maybe a 6, maybe an 8 or a 10-hour week here and there, but you gotta know what you're doing. So I will plug unabashedly because these are the methods that we do and we're hearing lots of people that are having great success with it. Go check out teamtrainiac.com. You can get yourself a 14-day free trial. And I will put in a caveat to this. If you log in and you notice some weird things like your week changing mid-week and not going straight from Monday to Sunday, or you go from like a strength and conditioning phase to your race phase mid-week, that's a big update that we're working on. So I've said this before, it's like a Tesla, like it's just always getting better. And that's one of the big things that I think developer Mike said around 3 to 4 weeks we'll have the math worked out for it. But it's like a big algorithm thing. That software is sometimes hard. All right, Trainiacs, go check it out, teamtrainiac.com, and let's gear up for Challenge Roth. I'm encouraged by all this. Those were some fancy graphs, eh? Later.